Warning, spoilers ahead. You've been cordially invited to join the Finer Things Club in honor of the office's 15-year anniversary. Myself and a few guests will be reviewing some of the top funniest episodes, along with a few fun facts, goofs, and our favorite quotes from the episodes. For those of you who have never seen The Office, it is a mockumentary based on the fictitious Dunder Mifflin Paper Company in the hands of Scranton branch manager Michael Scott. It follows the everyday lives of the manager and his employees that he manages. The crew follows the employees around 24/7 and captures their quite humorous and bizarre encounters, as they will do what it takes to keep the company thriving. The show aired on NBC for a cringy yet hilarious 9 seasons. In this podcast, we will be talking about the dinner party, stress relief, the injury, and threat level midnight. For anyone who hasn't seen The Office or needs a refresher, here is a review of our main characters of the series, many of whom are based on the original British series. While these characters generally have the same attitude and perceptions as their British counterparts, the roles have been redesigned to better fit the American show. Michael Scott, regional manager of the Dunder Mifflin Scranton branch, is a well-intentioned man whose attempts at humor often offend and annoy his peers and employees. Dwight Schrute is a salesman and the assistant to the regional manager, a fictional title created by Michael. Jim Halpert, a salesman, is known for his wittiness and practical jokes on Dwight. Pam Beasley is the shy receptionist, but in many cases helps Jim in his pranks on Dwight. In earlier seasons, Pam is engaged to Roy, the warehouse worker, but then ends up getting married and having children with Jim. Ryan Howard is a temporary worker, but is promoted to sales representative in the 3rd season. He later ascends to the position of vice president of the Northeast region and director of new media until his innovations are exposed as corporate fraud, and he is fired. After this and a stint in rehab, he again eventually ends up as a temporary worker at the Scranton branch. The accounting department includes the uptight and orderly love interest of Dwight, Angela Martin, the lovable but dim-witted Kevin Malone, and the intelligent but often patronizing Oscar Martinez. Rounding out the office are the salesmen. Stanley Hudson cannot stand Michael's constant references to his Black American heritage and doesn't like to take part in time-wasting meetings and often works on crossword puzzles or just sleeps during them. The shy and matronly saleswoman Phyllis Lappin dates and then marries Bob Vance from Vance Refrigeration, a company whose office is across the hall from Dunder Mifflin. Andy Bernard is a salesman from Stamford, Connecticut branch of Dunder Mifflin, introduced in Season 3, who transfers to the Scranton branch after the 2 offices merge. He ends up being the only Stamford employee to stay at the Scranton branch. Our one-person departments include the eccentric quality assurance representative Creed Bratton, who has a mysterious criminal history, the shallow and talkative customer service representative Kelly Kapoor, the promiscuous alcoholic supply relations representative Meredith Palmer, human resources representative Toby Flenderson, who is often the target of Michael's abuse. Down in the warehouse are foreman Daryl Philbin and warehouse dock worker and Pam's fiancé, Roy Anderson, who was fired in the 3rd season for attacking Jim because he kissed Pam. At corporate, we have Vice President for Regional Sales for Dunder Mifflin, Jan Levinson, who is later fired and becomes Michael's love interest. At the end of Season 4, Holly Flax transfers to the office as Toby's replacement. She becomes a love interest for Michael as they share very similar personality traits. In Season 7, Michael leaves to move to Colorado with Holly and Andy becomes manager. Now that you know about our main characters, you can better enjoy and understand the podcast. I hope that you will join me through the episodes as we have a lively discussion about our favorite and funniest moments from these episodes. Here's a few clips to give you a sneak peek. So, I like to get into some fun facts.
Of course.
In these little shindigs. So, my first fun fact is that BJ Novak, who plays Ryan, who is also a writer for the show, wanted Amy Adams, the famous Amy Adams, to reprise her role as Katie, the purse girl, in this episode. But Adams couldn't due to scheduling conflicts. So I've got actually a couple little fun tidbits about Amy Adams that I've learned from the Office Ladies podcast that Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey do, which I love. But Amy Adams was originally in Season 1 of the show, and it was either Season 1 or like the very first episode of Season 2. I can't remember. But she brought purses into the office for people to purchase.
Yeah.
This was right before she got famous. And Jenna Fisher, in her podcast, was talking about how whenever they were on set, they were talking to her about how things were going with her acting career. And she was like, oh, well, I just got fired off of this one show. She was like, I just kind of did this indie film not too long ago that I'm really excited for it to come out. And she ended up winning like an award for it.
Wait, do you know what it was?
I don't know what the movie was, but I think it was like one of the first movies that she did.
See if I can find it.
Yeah, it was before she got famous. And so in between season 1 and season 2 is whenever that movie came out, but she was still a reoccurring character in season 2 because she had started dating Jim.
Right.
So she was kind of like almost this A-list celebrity coming back onto The Office.
Right.
Which, binging on Netflix years later, you look at her and you're like, oh my God, how was Amy Adams on The Office?
Because I feel like that's what most people do. Like, I feel like, especially like people our age have watched it only on Netflix. Like, we didn't watch it when it just came out an episode at a time.
Yeah, if we would have been watching season 1 whenever it first came out, we would have had no idea who she was.
Right.
Well, anyways, Amy Adams couldn't do. I'm referring to her on the first name basis. It's me and Amy are cool now.
Me and Amy.
Amy Adams couldn't be back on the show, obviously, because she's super A-list.
Right.
So Michael's begging for anybody to come pick him up from the office, except for Dwight. He doesn't want Dwight to come pick him up, but as soon as Dwight figures out that that Michael needs help, he is running out of the office, gets in his car, is trying to fly off. He runs into a pole. And you hear the car crash and everything. He gets out, throws up on the car, and then everybody just kind of forgets about it.
I was actually upset he destroyed that car in that episode. I mean, that's actually a nice car. It's a nice little Trans Am.
I thought it was a Firebird.
Is it a Firebird?
Yeah. He has a big Firebird on the hood of the car.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Isn't that a Pontiac though?
Yeah, Pontiac Firebird.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys tune in next week for the next episode of the Finer Things Club. Hope everybody has a great week in quarantine.